And welcome back to Ben's Rant Nation. I'm your host, Ben. Please like and subscribe, share this video, comment below, let me know what you think. Let's get into things. Welcome to part 2 of my Democrats Dominate School Board series. In this series, I elaborate on the first video where I showed actual examples of extremism and activism happening in my local school board in St. Joseph County. Now that you've seen the evidence and you've seen the extremism for yourself, it's now time to see what local experts are saying about this very topic. So if you're a Hoosier and you live in the state of Indiana, you might be aware that we have a legislative session coming up soon, next month. Things start getting passed. They won't go into effect until July of 2024. However, we have some important things that need to be fixed in our schools starting right now. So what I did today was I interviewed 2 people who are very familiar with the challenges that our local public schools face. It would be former ABC news reporter Clifton French. He's the founder and he's the editor of Real News Michiana, and Representative Jake Teshka. So he's a representative from my district. Also, Jake Teshka is on the education committee, so he might have a few important things to say on this topic. So I interviewed both of them to get their points of view of what the problem is, what possible solutions could be for our public schools. As of right now, school board elections are about 10 years out of step with reality, okay? So the problem is, right now they're nonpartisan elections. But we all know if you look at any agenda for any school board meeting, okay, majority of the topics are politically related. They are not nonpartisan school boards. They simply don't exist anymore. Nonpartisan school boards went away in the mid-2000s, okay? They're gone. Nonpartisan school boards are about as common as record players. Nonpartisan school boards are about as common as VHS tapes. Nonpartisan school boards are about as common as the Macarena. Nonpartisan school boards are about as common as a woman who knows where she wants to go eat dinner. Nonpartisan school boards are about as common.
Take 2.
Macarena. All right. So what I discussed was a way to put academics over activism, because that's what these schools have turned into. Okay, all they're trying to do is produce as many Democrat voters as they possibly can. And we got to do something about that. Okay, a lot of conservatives and libertarians will tell you, just pull your kids out of school, homeschool them, the end. Well, okay, if you have the means, I guess go ahead. But the thing is, we need to fight this head on. We need to speak up and speak out and be heard. That's what needs to happen if you want to end this activism. So enjoy this interview where we talk about putting academics over activism. So I'm here right now with Clifton French. He's a former ABC reporter and the current founder and editor of Real News Michiana. And he's got the 3rd ranked deadliest beard in America. How are we doing, Clifton?
Hey, doing well, Ben. How are you?
Great. Hey, I got a few questions about public schools. Since most of my videos are all about PHM and public schools, I thought I'd ask you about a few since you kind of cover them for a living. That's what you do.
Shoot.
Awesome. Okay, so based on your reporting, what is your best estimate on how many school districts in our immediate area have been taken over by far-left activists, kind of like what we have at PHM?
Every single one of them.
Whoa, every single one of them?
Yeah, and if you would like to know a little information on this, it's because the higher education for education teachers has been hijacked. So every one of them has been taught in school, in college, when they're going to college to become teachers. They've all been taught critical race theory. They've all been taught, about microaggressions, all of this stuff. When they go into the classroom, they believe what they are teaching is fact because that's what they've been taught in school when they became teachers. And because they have a degree in teaching, they think that they know better than you. They're also taught that they know better than you when they're in college. They know better than a parent. So one of the foremost leaders in critical race theory, he was the dean of IUSB's College of Education. This guy would go all over the world, South Africa, Europe, places like that, teaching critical race theory and talking about how critical race theory needs to be pushed into higher education. That's why you have a plurality of teachers in this region who have gotten some sort of education from IUSB, their master's degree, their bachelor's degree, any sort of of continuing education, which they have to do to maintain their license, through IUSB, where they're being taught critical race theory and other leftist indoctrination.
Okay, Clifton, pump the brakes. I'm going to correct you there for a second, okay?
Okay, go ahead.
Just so you know, okay, almost every year, come January, the Indiana House of Representatives and even the Senate sometimes, they push for legislation to make school board elections partisan. And you know what happens? They get fact checked, okay, by all the they get fact checked. We're told what you just said is misinformation. That these representatives from all the rural areas, they're safe. They're safe from this liberal indoctrination. It's completely conservative. It's like how it was in Walnut Grove in 1897.
Yeah. So this stuff. So you can go to realnewsmichiana.com right now and look up this stuff happening in Whitley County, happening in Plymouth. I mean, we're talking Whitley County Consolidated Schools, one of the most rural places in the entire state of Indiana. That is fighting this kind of indoctrination.
Hey, you're not supposed to fact check me. Look, I've been assured by Republican politicians their school boards are 100% nonpartisan because they know their communities.
Yeah, sounds accurate.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on to question 2 after I owned you on that one. And you would know this probably better than most people, actually. That's why I'm talking to you. Except for the last question, obviously I was right. What impact has far-left activism in public schools had on our current generation?
It's destroyed it. What you are having right now, it's bizarre, right? So, and I'm going to actually see a little bit of optimism here. Kids are being taught, essentially, the counter-revolution right now is conservative. When you and I were growing up, I feel like in Indiana, anyway, if you were left or liberal or kind of, leaning toward that hippie type of thought process, right? A lot of that Democrat thought process, you were considered cool because it was the counter-revolution. Right? You were going against the grain. You were going against the establishment. It's completely flipped. Now right. You have something like, 1 in 4 kids identifying as LGBTQ, and then everybody obviously is an ally. And you have this counter-revolution of children, young people, who are going against the grain to become conservative, right? It's almost kind of like the cool kids now. Who are all a little bit of rebel. They're being rebellious. That is now the Republican, the conservative, right? So the problem is that you're gonna have to try to take this out of the schools. You're gonna have to try to take this out of the teachers, and I don't know how you do it, honestly.
Hey, Clifton, wait a minute. That actually brings me to a solution. Making school board elections partisan, or at least allowing school board candidates to state their political affiliation. So voters, I don't know who the hell they're voting for besides some random name on a box. That might actually help not only increase voter participation, which Democrats love democracy, right? Well, that strengthens our democracy, but it also allows voters to know the value system of who they're voting for.
To be more educated, right?
Right.
Now, everybody should be educated on who they're voting for, right? That's the pipe dream that we have. Nobody is educated completely on who they're voting for. And so the one thing that you can do is put an R or a D next to somebody's name to give somebody a little bit of information, at least a little bit. Right. I encourage everybody to research and investigate somebody's voting record and their social media record and all of that stuff before they vote for them. But at the bare minimum, having an R or D next to your name lets people know what you, for the most part, what you stand for. Trying to claim that school boards are not partisan is hilarious. Schools in general are partisan. Right. So you just brought up the union. What does the union spend their money on? They take money from teachers every single paycheck, right? And they spend 90% of that money on Democrat causes.
Exactly. As you brought up, Jake Teshka and a few other representatives tried to push legislation for partisan school board elections, but they got shot down not just by the few Democrats, but by Republicans who are also controlled by the same teachers unions. You can't make this stuff up.
Well, they're rhinos.
Right.
And that's why I said you need to know who you're voting for. You need to do your research, because a lot of people will claim that they're Republicans when they're not. And historically, in St. Joe County and in South Bend, lots of Republicans have done that on the other side, because it was hard to get elected as a Republican in this county. So they would run as Democrats, right? But they were Republicans running as Democrats.
Yep. Hey, thank you, Clifton. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Ben.
Yep. Bye. All right. So I'm here speaking with Indiana State Representative Jake Teshka. He's on the Indiana House Education Committee. How's it going, Jake?
Doing well. How are you, Ben?
Great. Thanks for coming on today. I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions about the state of education in Indiana.
Yes, sir.
Okay. First question. So throughout your time on the Indiana House Education Committee, have you seen or noticed like an increase in far left activism in K through 12 education?
Yeah, well, so, I was elected in 2020. And so I think, I came in my first session on the education committee. Folks were kind of just having their eyes open to just how much far left activism there has been in our traditional K-12 schools. And of course, a lot of this was brought on by the fact that kids were home during COVID, and parents were finally able to see some of the things that were being snuck into the curricula and the like. And so certainly we've seen this become a larger and larger issue over my first three sessions in the General Assembly.
Yeah, I think it's gotten worse and worse since 2020. I feel like, as a parent who goes to school boards myself, I feel like they're doubling down. I feel like they're doubling down a little bit, and they keep trying to up the ante more than they have before. And in your best estimate, do you think that affects a majority of the school districts in our state, or just some of them? Like, what do you think?
I would think that I would, again, best estimate, without knowing specifics in every single school corporation, but certainly having talked with my colleagues from all over the state, I would say that there's certainly these types of issues, and at least some level of some element of leftism in nearly every school district, right? And if you think about it, a lot of this is coming from higher ed, right? And it's coming from higher ed down. And so you've got teachers and administrators who are being trained in these universities where diversity of thought is no longer a key value, and where the adherence to this dogmatic leftism is really a priority. And so you've got folks kind of being brainwashed in the higher ed system, and then going out and filtering out into these districts. And so you may even I've heard from folks before, I've got a rural district, and so we're probably pretty safe from that. And I would just caution against that, kind of laissez-faire attitude just because you're in a rural district.
I was going to ask you about that. That's kind of like, that's pretty out of touch. I mean, yeah, we thought that in the early 2000s, the mid 2000s. Okay, it was normal to think that. But I think now, right, after all the stuff that's come out publicly, that's pretty out of step to think a rural area is safe from this. It's about as out of touch as Joe Biden's record player comment during the debate.
That's right. Yeah, and again, I think the problem largely stems from higher ed, and so whether you're in a rural district or an urban district, you're likely to have folks who are on staff at the school who have been brainwashed in some higher ed institution where required DEI and dogmatic adherence to leftist ideology is the norm.
Right. And my next question, sir, given your experience on the Indiana House Education Committee, how important is it, in your opinion, to reform our elections for our school board elections, right? Our school board elections are about as out of touch as politics were in the 90s compared to today. They're no longer nonpartisan school boards, really, anywhere in the state. I don't think so. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. In general, I think things that, folks are increasingly being asked as school board members to make, political decisions.
So you think it is important to reform the election process for school board candidates?
Yeah, I do. I think that, having at least the option of running with a party label will help both candidates and voters more clearly identify, the value system by which somebody's operating on. I don't agree with every Republican 100% of the time. And so it's not like that's just straight across the board. I'm going to be in lockstep with this person no matter what. But I think it is, indicative of the type of values that a certain individual holds. And so, you can at least make a more educated decision, I believe, if you have that party banner, that party label.
So yeah, you actually answered my third question. I was going to ask you how beneficial it was going to be. How beneficial would it be for voters to know the value system of the candidates? And you just answered that. So I appreciate that, because I think, as a voter myself, I go in to vote and all you see is a name and an incumbent. And the people that vote straight ticket don't participate. And that's a majority of voters. So you have a small fraction of voters that even participate in school board elections because they're not voting straight ticket for this. You can't. You got to pick the name. And if you're part of a popular school, like, I don't know, Penn Harris Madison, you typically just vote for the incumbent and know nothing about the candidate.
Yeah, I think people feel pressure, right, to fill out a whole ballot. And sometimes they don't know that they can undervote a race if they don't know enough about a candidate or a race to make an informed decision. And so, there's certainly pressure, and I think that's oftentimes where people might look and say, well, this person's the incumbent, and so might as well just tick that one off. And so again, I think it's increasingly, with all of the political noise throughout an election year, difficult for a school board candidate to really get a message out there. And so I think that having the option of running with the party will help voters make a more informed decision, and it helps that candidate tell voters at least something about their value system.
Right. Hey, I got one last question for you. Finally, we talked about this a little bit already, but with the trend of traditional low turnout with school board elections, how much do you think that would help the process with voter participation if party affiliation was allowed? Because if you allow party affiliation, that means straight ticket voters are now participating. So you're automatically going to amp it up by about 60-70% as far as participation. So do you think that would have a huge impact?
Well, certainly. I think just, you can look at the data, as you pointed out. Like, if you look at the drop off from the straight ticket votes to the school board race, to see that voter participation would certainly increase with the ability for that straight ticket bubble to pick up those individuals in the school board race. But I would also think that even if somebody's not necessarily checking that straight ticket option, if they're running down their ballot, they may be more inclined to vote for that race, again, knowing something that individual other than that, just their name. And so I think that it's kind of twofold there. You may pick up the straight ticket voters, and you may also pick up folks who don't choose that option, but then feel more comfortable voting for somebody because they know at least the party label.
Right. And honestly, I don't see how anyone could suggest that a school board candidate wishing to add their party affiliation to the ballot, how could that be controversial? That's really part of your identity. If you think about it, that's part of your value system. It's not everything, but it's part of your value system. And I see all of these Republicans and Democrats who are a little bit controlled by the teachers union, in my opinion. And they're really adamantly against this in this state because they know if school board candidates are allowed to put their party affiliation, if they choose, elections would be over for Democrats. They would lose control of about 80% of the school boards that they currently control in the state right now. And
I think, again, I think that's a fair assessment, right? We've got, I forget the most up-to-date figure is, but I believe in the last election cycle, we were talking about something in Indiana along the lines of 88% of county elected officials in the state being Republican, right? You've got a 70-30 split in the House of Representatives. You've got a 40 to 10 split in the state Senate. And of course, every statewide elected official is a Republican. And so certainly, if you are looking at that and you're somebody who is more liberal in your ideology, you're thinking, well, gosh, the last thing we want to do is allow Republicans to say they're Republican when they're running for school board.
More voter turnout strengthens our constitutional republic. I would think everybody across the board, both parties, would fully want to support that, unless you kind of don't.
That's right. Yeah, it's situational principles, right?
Right. And thank you, Jake, for this interview. I really appreciate hearing your take on this.
Well, thank you, Ben. Thanks for reaching out.
Thanks. All right. Have a good one.